Thank you. Well, I'm Andrea, and I'm going to review the first half of the presentation with you. And today, Penny and I are here to talk about the site visit. In preparing for the site visit, you want to continue to do your homework on the organization and make sure that you read all the materials that either the in-house recruiter or your point of contact has sent to you prior to your visit. It's really important that during your visit that you can show them that you know a lot about the organization already, because that shows them that you did do your homework and that you're truly interested in the opportunity. It's also important to research the area before you go on the visit, and also review the itinerary and the schedule in writing. Research the people you'll be meeting with, and you can do this many times by visiting the company's website. That way you're familiar with who you're visiting with, and you can ask them some appropriate questions based on their background and what they're going to be talking with you about, because it should list that also on the itinerary. Bring copies of your CV. We also recommend that you bring a tablet and a pen. Many times people show up and they don't have anything with them, and then it can be a little awkward, and then if they ask you or someone they're interviewing with if they have a piece of paper and something to write with. So that just shows that you're prepared. Have specific questions in mind that you would like to ask. And it's also important to ask the same question of different people, just to make sure there's consistency in their answers. Some questions that we think you need to make sure you ask about are turnover with the physicians or the nursing staff. You need to talk to them about volumes and what your expected volume should be for the first year especially. Ask about the reputation of the group in the community. They shouldn't find that as an awkward question, and they should quickly talk about that and if their reputation is very good in the community. And you'll be able to tell if they're not quite sure what to say. And if that happens, then maybe that's a question mark for you to think about. And then what is a typical day like? And that will help you get a better idea of the volume as well. And also preparing, we want you to consider any special concerns that you would like to address while you're visiting the community. You need to make sure that a community tour is included in your site visit, and that's with either a real estate agent or someone that works in the community, because if you're just trying to drive around the community to figure out where things are, you may not end up in the right places in the community and see the things that you need to see to be able to make a decision. So again, make a list. Or schools, do you have young children that you need to consider the schools? Cultural activities, religious activities, sports, spouse's career. Also, it's a good time in the beginning to talk about, if you do have a significant other, are they included on a first visit, or is that someone that's included only on a second visit? I will tell you that Carilion, a lot of times we do include spouses on a first visit, because if the opportunity is not a good fit for either the significant other or the family, there's no point in having a second visit. And then you will have wasted a lot of time. So ask. If they don't bring up the significant other for the first visit, then I would ask if that's a possibility. While you are there, I would find out if your spouse is in a medical career or in another profession, to see if they can also spend time talking with someone in the organization about their career, because that's part of the decision-making process too. Because it is a decision for the family at that point when you bring someone in to visit. You need to make sure you share all this with your in-house recruiter or whoever your point of contact is, wherever you're interviewing, so that they know that the itinerary meets your expectations as well. Because it's not just about them, it's about you too. And then you need to express any specific preferences or interests that you have. Also, you want to make sure, if you are bringing your family, that they've taken your family in consideration, and it's not a situation where your family's going to be stuck in a hotel all day, because that's not going to make your significant other or your family happy either if you've been entertained and everything and they're in the hotel all day trying to figure out what to do. We'd also like to recommend that you're prepared to answer the following types of questions. Different organizations have different styles. I will tell you the style at Carilion is pretty social. I've heard of other organizations where they actually ask behavioral interviewing questions where you're asked to give examples of behaviors and things of that nature. So you definitely need to be more prepared in that situation. And it's okay to ask your point of contact what kind of interview style you're about to participate in so that you're prepared. I also want to just let you know that during your meetings, you need to talk about 20% of the time and let the people in the organization do most of the talking. It's important that you're a good listener during this time as well. On the first point, we want to talk about tell me about yourself. It's a good idea to have prepared like a 2-minute kind of speech about yourself where you can talk about your professional background, talk about your long and your short-term goals, as well as any special interests that you have. Have specific examples to share that describe the type of caregiver that you are. If there is something special about you, you need to make sure you get that out there somehow during the interview, that they have good examples so they get to know you while you're there, because that's what the process is about. What interests you about the opportunity? What do you know about the opportunity? Are there specialty areas you would like to focus on? What are the 3 most important factors for you in considering the opportunity? So be prepared. I know at Carilion we try to, for different areas, try to get people to ask the right questions, because it's important for us to gather the information we need to make a decision. I'm going to pass this over to Penny so she can finish the presentation.
Good afternoon. I'm Penny Daniel. And Andrea's talked about preparing for the site visit, so now we would like to talk about just some tips for having a successful site visit and interview process. So the first bullet, dress professionally. As everybody's always heard, you only get one chance to make a good first impression. So you want to take advantage of that by dressing professionally, not wearing heavy colognes or perfumes. You're going to be meeting with a variety of people throughout the day, and you never know what people's, allergies, headaches, things like that. So, professional, neat. For men, obviously, if you're buying a new suit to go for your interview, cut the tag off that says, Calvin Klein or Tommy Hilfiger or whatever the case may be. Make sure you cut that off. It doesn't stay on there. The back, at the vent in the back, oftentimes it's from the manufacturer. It's stitched together, so you want to cut those. But just really little things that sometimes people they don't think about. So you want to make sure, like I said, that you're making a really good first impression. Turn your cell phone off and don't check messages. Text messaging, don't be sending, checking throughout the day. There may be opportunities for that on a break, at lunch. Often, you may be covering still your responsibilities away from work, even though you're on an interview. But, it will appear that you're uninterested in the position or perhaps a little distracted, and you don't want to do that. You want to feel like, your focus is on that job and that's your priority. Also, simple things. Make eye contact with the people that you're interviewing with. Smile. Act like you really want to be there. You're really interested in the job. Also, a firm handshake. And, that's something everybody can even practice with if you would like to. Have a firm handshake with people. Make eye contact, smile, introduce yourself, shake hands. Remain positive throughout the visit. Even if the same question has been asked of you after each interviewer, and that will happen at times, but remain positive, answer the question. Don't focus your conversations around compensation. There will be a time and a place for that, but during your initial interview process and as you meet with individuals is not the time to really talk completely about compensation. There's other important things that you need to find out about the position, about the culture of the organization, the vision of the organization, and whether that's an area that you can see yourself and your family living and practicing. Relax and be yourself. Be natural, who you are, and I think that will shine through for people. And one that we laugh about oftentimes is what Andrea already mentioned, kind of the listen more and talk less. We use the 80-20 rule. So listen 80% of the time, talk 20% of the time, and we often will say you have 2 of these and 1 of these, and that's how they should be used. Continuing, understanding the expectations of the opportunity. You want to look around the practice, see what it looks like, see what it feels like. Are the staff happy? Are they engaged? Do they appear friendly? Does it seem to be, a sense of camaraderie between the physicians and the other staff, the nursing, the clerical staff within the practice or within the hospital? See what those relationships look like. Support staff, equipment, technology, things that you need to do your job, what's important to you. Are those things readily available? And don't be afraid to ask those type questions. The practice and administrative structure, cultural, vision, mission, values, do they match your mission and your values and what you hope to achieve in your career? Assess that and how you'll fit in. Productivity, how is that measured? That's going to lead into the compensation discussions that you'll have at some point, and you just want to make sure you understand that. The patient mix, the payer mix, what the referral patterns are, what specialist support that you have, all those things will be really important to you. Obviously the call schedule, and one thing that's really important that we find is how you will be marketed as a new physician, particularly a general pediatrician or pediatric subspecialist. How will you be marketed? How will people know you're there? You're in the community, you're new to a practice. Are there community events that you can speak at? Are there schools that you can visit? Anything that's going to generate recognition of the fact that you're new to the area and new to a job and have a service to offer. So often for us at Carilion, we include marketing as part of our site visit process. Some organizations may, some may not. If it's a private practice or a smaller group, they may not have those resources available. So ask those questions and ensure, because that's going to be very important to building your business and getting you productive as quickly as possible. And then last, find out about the competition in your area. Who are they? Where are they? What type of market share do they have? Who you're going to be competing against and what challenges you may or may not have. So those are important questions, and don't be afraid to ask those questions. And now the last slide, the post-site visit process. So you've prepared for your visit, you've had your visit, what comes next? Clarify those steps in the process before you leave. You want to know what to expect, when to expect it, to whom you're going to have some follow-up communications from. When you leave, you need to be able to answer 2 questions. We feel, really important questions are 1, can I work here? And 2, can I live here? So you want to make sure through your process with your interview, your community tour, seeing the area, that you have a very clear indication at the time of the conclusion of your interview, the answers to those 2 questions. Also, make a list of pros and cons about the community, about the opportunity, what things you like, what you don't like, so that you can weigh those out as you begin your process of looking through what options you're considering for employment. We recommend that you interview in 3 to 4 places, and there's no right answer for that as to the right number. Some of that depends on if you're specific to a geographic region or if you're looking more broadly over a large area. But it gets really difficult if you begin interviewing at numerous places. If you haven't made really good notes and have really strong reference materials to go back to, it gets very confusing when you're at the end of those interview processes as to what the first ones looked and felt like. So I think it'll be important that you really try to narrow your selection processes for places to interview, and like I said, make really good notes about those. Be responsive to requests for additional information. So if you leave and somebody's asked you to forward something later, or you get requests for information further down the road, just be responsive, be prompt, follow up quickly, and feel free to follow up with any questions. You can ask your recruiter, your point of contact there, but any questions you have that are unanswered that you need resolution to, make sure you ask those questions and get those answers. Promptly send thank you notes to everyone that was involved in your interview process. And we get the question a lot, do I need to write a note or is an email acceptable? Email is acceptable now. That's something, and we see both of those, honestly. We get people who write out a thank you note and mail them in. We get people who send an email. Oftentimes throughout your interview, many people will give a card, but if you remember, ask for their business card so that you have that information. But if you don't, and oftentimes we find physicians are not walking around with their business cards necessarily in their pockets. So ask your recruiter, your point of contact, and they can provide you with email addresses, telephone numbers, whatever that you need to make sure that you follow up. And lastly, if you're not interested in the opportunity, again, let your recruiter or the point of contact know that. Your goal, keep in mind, your end goal is to receive a job offer. If, however, you do not receive a job offer, ask your recruiter or your point of contact for feedback that they can share with you that will help you as you move forward with other interviews. Any questions from anybody that we can answer for you? That's an excellent question. The question was on a second interview, if you're invited for a second interview, how should you become prepared for that as far as dress, professional dress? Perhaps you may be asked to spend time in a practice or to shadow in a practice. We typically find that people will still dress professionally for their second interview, even if they're spending time shadowing in a clinic or in a hospital. And that's certainly something you should feel free to be able to ask your recruiter, your point of contact. Obviously, if it's a hospital and somebody needs you to be in scrubs, they would supply those for you. But I think you dress professionally for the interview just like you do on your first visit. It's a great question. Thank you.